Welcome to another edition of The One Team We Agree On. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Kyle. How are you doing today?
Oh, doing fantastic. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited about today's episode because we got two awesome guests that we've been dying to have on the show for some time. So, without further introduction, I'd like to introduce our first guest. He is a writer for Philly Soccer Now and has been a Union fan since 2010. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Evan Cohen. Evan, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. And then our second guest is a Jesus Bueno. You probably could say he's Jesus Bueno's #1 fan. And he is a capper for the Sons of Ben and an adamant supporter of the Union and you too. You all know it's Kyle the baby. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on.
And just a side note here for those not watching on YouTube, it seems that both Kyle and Jillian are
Look at this. I just noticed that too. That's awesome. Look at
Twinsies.
us go.
Yes.
Yeah, it was funny because I was like, when I was talking to both of you, and then I was like, hey, we're gonna have them on. I was like, you gotta wear your MLS bootleg shirt, and I was like, she's like, oh, definitely. So
Yeah.
now that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I've now worn it twice in recent episodes. I wore it with Kevin Kincaid too.
So
Yeah.
let's
it's a
get
good
into it.
one.
Let's get into it.
Well, yeah. So what are we wearing? I am wearing Jesus Bueno bootleg MLS shirt. One of several that I've gotten recently. But it's a good one.
And I'm wearing one of my favorite items now that it's like fall, winter. Wearing the Philadelphia Union long sleeve you got me with the snake on the back. I really like this. This is one of probably my favorite things to wear now during the off season.
Yeah,
So
like it has the smoke in the water
yeah,
pattern that's on the the
super
away jersey.
comfortable. Evan, what are you wearing?
I am off to dinner after this, so I am in a plain shirt. But I had the childhood cancer warm up shirt ready to go for this.
Oh, nice.
That was the plan.
Hey,
I like that one a lot too. That's a good one.
Still haven't worn it yet, but
Yeah,
it's really
been waiting to break it out.
Yeah, I think I've only worn it to I haven't worn it to a game yet because I would always wear my lucky jersey pretty much, but I've worn it to school on like teacher dress down days and stuff like that and special events. So I wear a lot of Union stuff on teacher dress down days. So yeah, how about you, Kyle?
Oh,
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I had to go with my bootleg MLS. This is the second time now that I've worn this shirt. I love the shirt. Such a nice shirt. And honestly, like I'm really happy with the quality of it too. It's a great shirt. I'm so happy that those guys are doing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're just turning out, and even outside of the Union, some of their other pieces of merchandise have been solid, just from
Yeah.
like an MLS history standpoint, and just fun stuff. So before we get started, make sure to follow and please interact with us. We are on Twitter at TOTWAG. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the One Team We Agree On. And you can check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, on all other major podcasts, except for Threads. We're still
Well, that's
not
not a podcasting platform.
but yeah, but still.
Social media. We're on most social
Yeah.
media and podcasting
That's a running
platforms,
joke.
basically. Yes.
So anyway, starting off, kind of for those of listeners that have not heard you two before, kind of talk to us about how you each got into the Union. And Kyle, we'll start off with you.
So I remember my first game was April 22nd, my birthday back in, I believe it was 2016. We played Montreal. My mom had got us tickets. It was just something that she thought would be cool to go do for my birthday. And I remember I watched maybe like 15 minutes of that match. I think we drew it 3-3. Evan would know it better than I would, but I remember I spent like 15 minutes actually watching the game, and then the rest of it, I'm just turned looking at the Sons of Ben. And that's kind of what got me hooked was like being at a game like, hey, that's pretty cool. But then I'm looking at the Sons of Ben, and I knew immediately that I wanted to be a part of that. It was a really cool thing, especially being so young. I don't even damn, how old was I when it happened? But I'm not good at math. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of just something my mom thought would be cool. And I mean, now we're here. So
Nice, nice. Evan?
A little bit earlier than that, but 2010, I was only, 6, 7 years old, and my dad's friends, they had gone in on some season tickets to split, and so I ended up at the link, with some new soccer team I hadn't heard anything about at, the famous 3-2 over DC, the first ever home game,
Mhm.
and went to a bunch of games that year. Was immediately hooked, made it my entire personality for pretty much my entire childhood. And then in 2019, became a season ticket member again, and have slowly gotten more and more into it with COVID and all that, meeting a bunch of people like Kyle. And now this year, starting to look at it more professionally, writing and contributing to some other things.
Nice, nice. Kyle, you bring up an interesting point about like your first game because that was kind of for us with the
Yeah.
Atlanta game. We both were enjoying, the game. Obviously, you win 3-1, but more importantly, we both kept looking over at the river and going, "Man,
I was like,
that
that looks like a good
good
time.
time." So we kept like saying, like, "Yeah, we want to get involved with that." And now, we're in the river end, but you kind of talked about it a little bit with meeting people. How'd you guys both connect? Was it through the union? Did you guys know each other prior to?
Kyle, do you want to take this one? I believe it was,
I guess I can take it. So I
yeah,
remember so COVID had just kicked off
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was
and
2020
everybody
summer,
was no, it was they did that tournament pretty early, didn't they?
maybe, yeah, late spring, maybe. It was 2020 in there.
But the Union, they did like a virtual FIFA tournament that me and
Mm-hmm.
Evan both played in. And I remember because we had both picked Liverpool and we started talking about that. And then Evan, he told me about how he had a pro clubs team and I joined it, played for that for 2 weeks, and then none of us ever talked again. Me and Evan stayed connected, but I think the rest of them, I don't even think they've talked to each other since anyway. But I mean, we kind of got close through that tournament, and then we only really got closer as time went on. So
Yeah, I
Nice.
mean, I still remember we met through, and then I had some other friends. We were all playing FIFA during the lockdown with nothing to do, and I'm like, oh, I know a guy who can come in and take a spot, and it was Kyle. And I had never met him, but we had played together, and he seemed like a nice guy. And a year later, I'm crashing this basement after an away game we got back from at 3 in the morning from Red Bull in a nor'easter, and fighting for dear life, driving home, sleeping on his couch, and just from there.
That, that's a great story because I've heard some other sports talk about over the years just crazy like road trip stories
Mhm.
across like going through snow, ice storms, even like it's always Red Bull. It's always Red
Always.
Bull, like always, always. Occasionally you'll get the DC one, but it's always Red Bull, which I find always fascinating. Evan, how did you get in and connected with Philly soccer now, being your first year?
Yeah, back in, I think it was January, maybe February, right around preseason when all that was kicking off. SB Nation cut all the funding for the MLS sites, and a bunch
Mhm.
of them died off, unfortunately, and a bunch of them transitioned into running themselves. And I had talked to Matt, who runs it over there, and is incredible and does so much behind the scenes. And basically just reached out, said I've been looking to break into this for a while, and with everything changing and expanding with them, since I believe they absorbed another site or two during that, um, and he offered me the chance to come in and write a little bit as a guest, and one thing led to another, and I've just been so grateful to take whatever people don't want, whatever topics people aren't interested in or don't have the time for, taking each opportunity. And I've gotten to meet some really great people and get some really good opportunities through that. I can't can't express enough how awesome it's been.
Yeah, and your work's been wonderful. I've enjoyed reading
Thank you.
it, and it's great to see more and more people, especially in the support section, that have been getting into it. Like we've seen Jimmy, Jose, myself, Todd Lewis. Just a lot of us are starting to get into it more and more, and we're lucky to have great outlets like Philly Soccer Now. So, Kyle, I have a question, and this is actually one for Jillian wants to know. I think, how did you get the nickname Kyle the Baby? If you don't mind asking. I mean,
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
You're not the only one that wants to know.
Okay.
So I was 14 when I had first kind of like introduced myself to the union community. It was through the union happy hour Zoom calls that Jared was running with there was a few other people that were involved in like starting it and having the idea for it, but I solely remember Jared running it basically from the week to week basis that it was on.
Mhm.
So all of these people that I kind of introduced myself to were like early, mid, late 20s, 30s, 40s, some even later on in life. And I was only 14 years old. So being a part of these conversations and they're making these references to all sorts of pop culture that I'm sitting there wondering, what are they talking about? And that became a big thing as well, is like somebody would make a reference and then go, wait, Kyle, do you know what this is? And then it would basically be like they put me right on the hot seat. If I didn't know, all hell broke loose. It was always the biggest deal in the world. But you know, that happy hour call, if it weren't for that, I don't know what I'd be. I don't know how I would have gotten myself out there. But yeah, I mean, that's basically how it came about.
Nice, nice. So,
Yeah. So, we enjoy going to the tailgates a lot and, we know how much fun it is. But for someone, like if someone's listening that's never stood in the river end or gone to the tailgates with SOBs, how would you each describe the experience and um, how would you convince someone to experience it?
I mean, there's nothing like it. I talk to people all the time who have been to, an Eagles game or even, a Flyers playoff game, stuff that's, some of the better atmospheres in the city and the country. And they try to compare it. I try to compare it. There's nothing, there's no example. You just have to do it. It's, thousands of people with this incredible passion that you can feel, even if you're not interested. I've brought people who aren't super big fans. I've talked to people who are there for the first time and, 90 minutes later, they're super into it because it's just infectious. And, we've talked about recently, I feel like how it's more than just that. And everyone kind of, there's the unspoken thing about how it's more than just being there for the sport. And I've met some great people, including Kyle, for example. Um, it's so much more than watching a team. It's just a community and something so great like that.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what Evan said, I mean, honestly, like I haven't known a lot of these people for a very long time. Like it's only been a couple years I mean, but these people feel like family to me. Like that's how close I've gotten with some of them. Like I don't know what I would do without these people. Like I would go to war for every single one of these people that I've had the honor of knowing through this thing that like of all things to meet somebody through like a tailgate for a soccer game, like that's really it's special. It's really one of a kind.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we just started going to the games in 2019 and been hooked ever since. I mean, the first game I went to, I was like, this is so fun. And he can tell you, I was not really into soccer before. I mean, he was, but I was more about, all the other Philly sports. And, but we found common ground. I mean,
yeah.
it's like, hey, this is a team we can both enjoy. And we've gotten to know so many people the last few years going to the tailgates and everything. And it's incredible. We love it. And right now I really miss it actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm keeping plenty busy with teaching and coaching and all different stuff, but something's missing.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because that's the same thing we hear from other guests that when we talk about the tailgate, the river end, it's the family, the experience, the friendships that they've gotten. And when the season's over, there'll be like that week or two where everybody's kind of down, either good or bad in terms of like how they're feeling about the team. But then everybody's like, man, I really miss the tailgates. I really miss just seeing everybody. So, no, there is something special, and I think it's the culture that the Sons of Ben have created, and the Union have. So it's something that's very special because you guys are right. You don't get this in like the Eagles or like other areas necessarily with you know just that community. I feel.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, the other teams have just huge, huge fan bases too. There's massive.
Correct.
I mean, you go to something like for the Eagles, for instance, yeah, tailgates are crazy. There's such, huge fan base, but like I feel it's more personal.
Yeah.
I'd say it's, we get to know like I can go stand in the river end and you're up in the press box and I'm fine because I know everybody around 136 and 137, and that area. So good times with that.
For both of you, what are some of your favorite Union memories, like together, or just whatever in general,
Any away game we've done, both of us, I think, what have we done? 4 or 5 of them now. I mean, our schedules are a bit tough
Yeah.
now that I'm away and he's closer to home. But we did Red Bull that first time that I talked about, and that must have been 2:33 in the morning by the time we got back in some of the worst rain I've ever seen. The game was delayed for lightning, and we were stuck on the bus for a couple hours. NYCFC any year, but last year especially, we did
Mhm.
New York for the day with a group of our friends from 5, 6 in the morning. And it's really just about the people and then having, the good experiences with the team. In addition to that, it's just the cherry on top for it all, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. But yeah, that NYC away day that we did this past year was that was a really cool thing. Like it started out as just like a stupid idea. And then I found myself awake at 7 in the morning going to get munchkins and, food for people like coming over my house, and we're speeding up 295 to get to the train station, screaming sea shanties. It's just like it's like stupid things like that, just running around New York with no real agenda, just running around being dumb, like just doing and then going and seeing that game. I think that game made the entire day
Absolutely.
completely worth it. Completely worth it. That game was so special. And I think I honestly I remember we were coming back, um and somebody had sent us like a little clip from the broadcast, and it showed us, and it just kept panning out, and Kai Wagner's lining up to take the corner. I remember that shot was so cool. But
No,
yeah,
I
that was a really special day.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I was driving home and Jillian's like watching some of the clips from the game that people put together and they were on social media and we're like, oh my gosh, there's Evan and Kyle right there, So
That was a fun game too.
that was
Yeah.
and that was a fun game. I
Yeah.
mean, you had everything.
I can't believe how close we were,
There
like where they actually had us.
and then you
Oh,
just
yeah.
had NYCFC fans being NYFC
And
Oh,
fans.
yeah.
yeah.
You guys know what I'm talking about. That whole group there. That was to the, I guess if we're
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at the field, they were to our left.
Yep.
Yeah, that game had it all. So, uh, let's shift and talk about Union 2 for a little bit. If you both could share your experiences in regards to the games, the players and coaches, and just the supporter culture that you guys are starting to create there, what would you sell people on?
It's hard to explain, but it's so relaxed and there's so little pressure, which is why I think we have so much fun with it. It's only a few months old. Kyle texted me on like a
Mhm.
Wednesday, like, hey, Union 2 plays at 5 p.m. on Thursday, which made no sense in the first place. He's like, do you want to go and see if we can bring a drum or a trumpet or whatever the idea started as and just have fun with it? And we had some back and forth before we were allowed to get that drum in, but it became just a really fun thing to do. And it's, as much as we all fell in love with the main team and the Saturday nights and under the lights and all that, there's something really fun about being right on the field. And, we were kicking a ball around outside the stadium for 2 hours because we were all early. And, it's just it's so natural. There's no, there's none of these barriers. We're not sitting in traffic for hours planning it out. We just went there, you know, sung our hearts out, had fun, and it's just, no pressure. It's I mean, Kyle, I'm sure you can describe this better than I can.
I mean, no, you've been doing pretty good with it, but you know, like yeah, like Evan said, there's like really not as much pressure as there would be for like say a first team game to like really get stuff going. But like with us, because it's such a small group and we're all so motivated to be there anyway, it's like
Mhm.
one person starts singing, we're all singing, right? But I think what we're doing, I think it's really kind of become a true like one of a kind thing. Like I don't know anywhere else in the country that has MLS Next Pro where like you have fans handing players little hug jugs at halftime or
Mhm.
full time, and you're throwing beers to the coaches and you're dancing and singing with the players as they're walking off and they're coming over hugging us saying what's up. Like I don't know where else you get that. Like I've and I'm sure, I've maybe some other guys that are a part of this have also kind of built this kind of bond with the players. But I mean, I talk to some of them like on a regular basis. Like the other day, I was talking to Stojanovic,
Mhm.
um, when they first announced the whole like Open Cup thing and how the next pro teams are going to step in for the first teams. I think I posted something. And it was like, oh yeah, the trophy picture is going to go crazy. Cappy's lifting it, and he's messaging me. He's getting hyped up for it, and um, I mean, it's really it's just so special, and I don't even know whose idea it was originally. Like it might not have even been mine, but like it's so cool, and I'm happy that whoever it was had the idea to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've been to like, well, not counting the Wrexham one, we've only been to like one like regular Union 2 game. We went after the Pints for Pets, and I mean, we had a blast.
It was awesome, and I think that was a game, like, Adam Booth was there,
Yeah.
like, we had the drums, and, like, it was cool because all the chants were organic and we're just, like, making up random stuff and yelling at players. I remember there was a guy on New
Oh, the
England
guy that
that
looked old.
like, he was, like, 40, and we're, like, just yelling at him the whole time, like, we're like, "Sir, sir, do you have your ID?" And, like, it was
Sir,
just,
that's ridiculous, sir.
like and, like, even like Kyle, like when every time Kevin Casey would like make an announcement, you'd be like, "Thanks, Kevin," and it just like you don't get that at first team game. You only get that you do, and there's something special about that. There really is because you even see like the assistant refs laughing at some of this stuff, and it's fun, and I think more people could take advantage and see that. I think it's just a really good atmosphere, and there's good soccer there too. I think. Um,
Yeah, it's nice to see the guys that are up and coming and, guys that could break through to the first team and, yeah, just a different atmosphere. I really liked the fact that we had all the organic kind of chants, and how relaxed it was. We had a
yeah.
blast.
Mm.
Yeah, and we loved the free hugs. I mean, love that. When did that become a thing?
Um, so that was something me and Bross we were talking. It was after a game, after a first team game. We were in Chester. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're sitting there just hanging out. And he was like, "Yo, so you know how we hand out beers to the first team?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, since none of the next pro guys are 21, why don't you do like those little hug jugs?" Because I think they had like 250 boxes
Oh,
in
there's
the
so
in the
many
building
extras.
somewhere. Oh, well, the extras that are in there now, they're from me, right? But I remember they had like 250 boxes in there. I was like, you know what? Let's put them to use because I think they've been sitting there for a good amount of time. I don't think they'd have broken them out any earlier in the season. So I mean, we took him. It was a hit like right away. I remember the first time we did it. So we put maybe like 30 in there. I remember uh David Vasquez, he came over and he saw and we handed him one and he looked at it and it took him a minute to register like what it was that we'd handed him. And he looked at it and he goes, he lit up like a Christmas tree and he held his shirt out and he just starts stuffing them in his shirt. I think he left with like half of what we had.
Oh yeah.
He is a fiend for those things. He's taking them at halftime. He's taking them any chance that he can get. But it's really become just something. It not that it was like a stupid idea, but like
No.
it was just something like just out of the blue. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
again, that kind of goes back to where else do you get that in MLS? Where else do you get that? Like, so
You don't, and I think honestly that's something that's just a really unique experience. Like you said, like somebody like David now is just like he's like ever coming over like, hey, where's the hugs at? I mean,
yeah.
I love that. And speaking of players, like for both of you, you've watched a lot of the U2. Who are players that maybe I mean, obviously we know about David Vasquez. We know about Andrew Rick, CJ Olney, but who are maybe some other guys outside just like Raffanello and some of those
Like the
guys
guys that actually get first team time.
first team minutes that maybe people don't know about that are coming up that got a shot with the first team, or if not with the first team, maybe getting sold internationally.
I mean, I think you took the ones right out of my mouth that I was going to highlight. I mean, obviously the ones that people know, they know for a reason. Some of these kids are incredible.
Yeah.
I think of David Vasquez mainly. He is,
Yeah.
when he's on the ball, it's something. But honestly, it's hard to pick in particular. There's, they move so much as a unit, a lot like the first teams that we've seen. It's the same philosophy. It's very fast paced. It's very, very one touch heavy, and they play the same style. So they really do, if a couple of guys are playing well, the whole team's playing well. And when they're maybe, not playing as well against a better team, everyone's struggling. And it's truly, there's so much individual talent at every position on that field. I don't think Kyle, I mean, I don't think there's a single player we've seen that isn't up to it at the very least. It's not so much who's not known. It's just how good some of these guys are. I think David Vasquez, like you said, people know he's good. There's something being 10 feet from him as he's one-on-one with the guy. He's incredible. And even the first team guys, Raffanello, Quinn Sullivan, I remember we saw him play 90 against someone, and it's one thing to see him put up good minutes with the first team. It's another thing to watch him play against 17-year-olds. You would have thought, you would have thought he was Messi if you didn't have the name on the shirt. It's incredible just watching the skill these guys have.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that, guys like Quinn get time with the first team.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kyle, you have anything to add? Like anyone you think could break through?
Well, and I've got a little personal bias. So obviously, Stefan Stojanovic. I mean, he's a great guy, first of all, but I mean, he's an absolute baller. I'm really hoping that, he gets some first team time. I think he really deserves it. I mean, again, he's a great guy. He's a baller. I mean, he puts up decent numbers as well. Um, Another one that he just committed to Penn State, Frankie Westfield. I think he's really good as well. He's really special. I don't really know if he wanted to play with the first team. I think he's got dreams abroad, which, he's young. Of course, I can't blame him. But, I think he's really special. And I think he's a name to watch as well.
Nice. Yeah, somebody for me that I know he was added, I believe, and you guys can correct me, halfway through the year is Neil Pierre, center back. I mean, he's obviously young. He's got a couple years to, develop, but he's somebody that when I was at open practice, even I think it was him and McCanya were out doing head ball drills on open practice, and he looked phenomenal. I mean, you guys have watched him a little bit more. What's your take on him?
He has the talent. I'll say that. we were both talking. I think I only got to see him play once before I moved back to
Mhm.
school, but he, again, he's young, and we noticed a few, maybe sloppy mistakes that
Right.
the veteran players, the older guys, I'm saying veteran like they're not 18 or 19, but some of the guys who have more experience maybe don't make. But the raw talent is so clear, and he is. I don't have his height in front of me, but I got to imagine he's the tallest guy on that team comfortably. He is massive, and I believe that night, or sorry, that week they went down to wherever Nashville's team is. I'm blanking, and he headed in a corner. He's got a foot on the guy he's marking.
Mm.
He is just the athleticism, the raw talent for someone that young. He's going to have a future somewhere big, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the small amount of time I've seen him play, I mean, wow, and yes, he is massive. Like he is super tall, and he's what, 15, 16? Like he's really young, and his brother Nelson too. Like those guys, we've been kind of watching them because they're from Lebanon, which is not too far from us. We're in Lancaster. So, when we I meet the team night, we said to Nelson Pierre, we're like, "Hey, 717." And he's like, "Yeah." And we're like, we had a good
Yeah.
conversation about that, but so,
So
so, what are you looking forward to the most, with the 2024 MLS Next Pro season? Like, do you have anything on the supporter side that you're working on that you can comment, or anything in particular?
Definitely got stuff we're working on. I'm not sure how much we can say, but we definitely have some stuff in the works. I think, at least the way I saw it, I think this last season was kind of a test run for us to see, is this something we can do? Is this something other people are interested in? And I think it was a resounding yes to both of those questions, and we had so much fun. I think that's the main thing with it, and we're definitely looking to make it a little bit more official, maybe a little bit more. Not that we're disorganized, but cleaning up maybe the rough edges on that note.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, yeah, we're just trying to sort of organize the group. I'll be the one to say it. We're a mess. We're a bit of a mess. Um, but obviously on that front, kind of just getting ourselves together, maybe getting more. Obviously, we'd like more people, but kind of just want more involvement.
Mhm.
Um, we got a couple good TIFO ideas that I'm really hoping that we can make a thing. And um, man, what else are we doing?
Um, you know, again, not sure how much we can say until it's all finalized, but
Hmm.
definitely more organization coming. I'll say that.
Good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Lancaster, so I mean, it's sometimes it's hard for us to, go to a game and then till we get out there, it's 10 o'clock, get home, and then drive back down for a Sunday match. But that is one thing that I think you and I both talked about is getting to more U2 games next year because it is a fun experience.
It
So,
is, yeah, like, because that's why it took us so long to get to one, because yeah, it's like an hour and a half drive to Chester from us. So, but yeah, like when we were already out there for Pines Props, like, oh, let's go, that'd be fun, that's perfect. And we're like, yeah, why did it take us so long to get to one? This was great. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to some more. As long as it fits in our schedule. I think, over the summer we have more free time. That definitely makes sense.
and we've talked to other people, we've been talking up like, hey, you've been to a first team game, you need to get to U2. So hopefully more and more people start showing up, and I'm excited to see what you guys got planned for next year. What in terms of the team, what are you guys looking most forward to? Just like with play and MLS Next Pro.
I think the beautiful thing about it is that no 2 games and no 2 weeks in that league are the same. It's
Mhm.
first of all, it's the trial ground for what MLS tries.
Hmm.
They're implementing some of those new rules with injuries and substitution timing, and those have all been in Next Pro. So you kind of get to see the test runs of a lot of these rules. And then the other thing, like we keep mentioning, there's so much talent, and
Mhm.
they might not be a team that practices as the same unit every week, but there's so much raw talent that it's just a treat to watch them. Even if you're not banging a drum over with us, it's great to see the future. It's great to see the guys that you'll see with the first team, some of them in a couple of years. And there's the other appeals. I know a lot of people are interested in the fact that it's very cheap. There's no traffic. Parking's not the nightmare that it is for a first team game, and you kind of get, I would say, an equal amount of enjoyment out of it without some of those hurdles. So we're trying to really encourage people to come out and join us for those.
Yes.
Kyle, you got anything to add?
I'd like to emphasize the parking is not a nightmare. Please come to U2 games. Let's make it a nightmare.
Free parking.
The parking is free.
The parking is
Yes.
free. There is no security though, so beware.
Yeah, no, the funny thing was when I went for that game and we parked, we're like, are we in the right spot? Like we just parked in the right lot, and then I remember the day before I texted my ticket rep, I'm like, hey, just so we're planning, I heard parking's free, just want to make sure. They're like, yeah, just park. They didn't tell me where. I'm like, I'm just gonna go to Lachi. I saw like one other car there. I'm like, I guess this is it. And so let's shift now to the Philadelphia Union. I want to get both your thoughts on the season, both the good and the bad. So, I mean, obviously this year for some say they regressed. I mean, if you look back to maybe years prior to 2018, 2019, this might be considered a good year. But now that there's expectations, as Coach Jim Curtin has said, where do you guys stand on this season overall? Now taking kind of a couple weeks to kind of put your thoughts in place.
I'll definitely admit that I have a lot less negative things to say than most people do. At least most people I've talked to. I know I've been in some heated discussions about whether or not this was a complete failure or not. Again, part of this may come from the fact that I watched 7, 8 straight seasons of playoff soccer in this city, and it was not fun to watch. It wasn't like they were playing, the beautiful game that didn't quite get them results. It was not pretty. It was not fun. It was not successful. So maybe that's why I don't see as much harm in it. Obviously, not 2022. Didn't have the same firepower. I was just looking through a bunch of the stats, and the regression both on the defensive side and in terms of scoring was upsetting. It's disappointing to see, but at the same time, I think the biggest thing is that they just didn't catch the breaks they had the year before. The injuries caught up to them a bit, even though they were still a bit lucky on that front. Not having everyone in the depth wasn't there to supply for it. And, they weren't scoring 6 a game, which was never sustainable, but still not as fun. And, I think the biggest thing was just a lot of those games that they really should have been clinical in and won. They let slip a lot of 0-0 draws that just didn't need to be those, and not necessarily in a terrible end of the world situation if they make the right moves to keep the squad there. I just don't think they caught a single break, and they didn't play well enough to make up for that.
Kyle?
So, I mean, yeah, obviously, again, like Evan said, it's kind of, in a way, it's disappointing to see the team kind of regress a little bit compared to what it was last season. But I think something else that you kind of have to consider as well is that we had like a completely new thing that we had to be a part of this year with the Leagues Cup, which, that, by the way, that was a really cool and strange time in life.
Yes.
Being in Chester every other day, it felt like
Yep.
I was there so often my phone thought I worked there. But I just, again, like the injuries, just constantly, like just stupid stuff, just over time. But I for what it's worth, I mean, what was it? We got semifinal in CONCACAF. Evan, you're gonna have to correct me.
Yeah, you're right.
You're better with this than I am. We got semis in CONCACAF against LAFC, which, I mean, let's be honest,
That was the
didn't really.
expectation.
Yeah, that was semis against Miami in the Leagues Cup. That was a mess. Open Cup. Honestly, I haven't seen much Open Cup soccer from the Union. Like that's how long I've been around, is I really haven't experienced that. So that was kind of just like, like I brushed that off right away. That
Mhm.
was over and done with in a day. Um, and then MLS season, that was the most brutal way to go out. I mean,
Mhm.
with seeing that Evan, I remember there was a bunch of us. We're all at some place over in, I don't even know, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Um, we're watching it on a golf simulator. Evan, as soon as the ball went in the net, Evan's running up to the screen. It's offside. That's
I
offside. He's
drew the
losing his
line with my
mind.
hand. Yeah.
Mhm.
He's losing his marbles. I'm standing back there like, come on, like I'm holding on to a little bit of hope. I'm just, but I mean, no. But besides that, we had a good season. Besides all that,
Yeah.
you know, so there was good memories, and that's what I
Mhm.
take away with it.
I think that's what we take away with it too. And to your point, with the way the season left, it was kind of like I remember just sitting there in the press conference and Jim just coming in, and I'm like thinking back in my head, is he gonna get fined for this? Because he was not happy. Like that's like I've only seen Jim not happy like probably a handful of times in the press
Yeah,
conference,
it's
but
rare.
it's rare. He's usually very like even keeled, like thoughtful, like about how he feels. But yeah, he was mad and being on that, like I literally was looking right down on the line on that play, and literally when that ball like went in, I'm like, he's off. He's off. Like
Yeah.
even people in the press box were like, and I've told this story. It was just a weird way to end the season,
Yeah.
but
It was harder for me to tell because I was in the away supporters section, and so we're kind of we're facing, like, we're at the end where the goal was scored and kind of in the right corner there. So like saw it all develop, but it was harder for us on our end to tell that was offsides. But then like there was murmurs going around like, oh, they're gonna check it, they're gonna check it. And then I'm checking my phone and I see like Kyle and some of our other friends like talking about it. I'm like, wait, they gonna check it? It's offsides, what? And and then I'm seeing everything. I'm like, what? And then everyone starts being like, wait, they're not actually going to do a thorough check of this. And like it's just it was ridiculous. But oh yeah, and I don't know if I told you this, Kyle, but like I saw some of my students from I teach at two middle schools, okay? And I hadn't seen some of my students since before the playoffs were over and everything. And so I have a couple of Union fan students, and they were over at the school I'm currently at for a holiday concert. And they're like, they said to me like, "Hey, Mrs. Allman, he was offsides." The first thing they're like, "The guy was offsides." It was so funny. But yeah, but that was just like, okay, if it wasn't such a controversial thing and we lost on good goal, it is what it is. But that's just a crappy way to end it.
I think Evan, to your point, there was regression this year, but also I think like you said, and we were saying this all along too, they just weren't getting the breaks this year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing, you get an offsides call that last year, man, maybe he was offsides and we get that break. And now it's like, no, we're not getting that break. A bounce takes, in our favor. It was one of those years. So, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it's disappointing, but like you said, Kyle, we had so many great memories that even though the season was very long, we're ready for 2024 now.
Yeah,
So
let's talk about the emergence of Jesus Bueno.
that's
Like,
my next point.
what a season he had! Like how he just broke out during Leagues Cup and had his moments. Like, wow, right?
Yeah, I want to get your guys' thoughts on that because I mean, yeah, he broke out in Leagues Cup, but I, as somebody who's been watching him even the year before, I've always was wondering why is he not getting more playing time, and now we're starting to see it
Yeah, we've
this
been
year.
high
We
on him for a
saw
while
it. So,
too, and like only, yeah.
where are you guys at with Jesus?
Oh, he had, for my money, the most improved season of anyone. I thought you could see the talent originally. I think
Mm-hmm.
throwing it way back, but Kyle and I went to an open training. I want to say it was right before the 6-0 win over Houston. I guess a year and a half ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And Jesus Bueno at that point was only playing with U2. He hadn't I don't think he had a minute all season with the first team at that point. And we're watching, and I think everyone's healthy and everyone's playing, maybe an exception or two. And the ball keeps going to the net, and we're just sitting there, mindlessly. And we keep looking, and there's these bright orange boots that keep hitting the ball into the net, and we both look confused. And all of a sudden, it kind of hits us both at the same time that Jesus Bueno has scored, what, 6 times in this like 11v11 game or something like that in 10 minutes. We're watching this guy that I think, at least at the time, I thought was a defensive player who maybe had some attacking talent. I thought he was really going to be that, backup option at the 6. He was a defensive guy. And all of a sudden, I see him score with both feet in like 6 different places, running the show, honestly. And we knew the talent was there. He started scoring with U2 right after that, I think. And to see him now come into the first team and have so much success on both sides of the ball, I know his defensive stats are fantastic, the ones I've seen. So I think I knew it was coming. It was a long time coming, and I'm really glad that it worked out for him. I know Kyle's a bit more excited, maybe, than the average person with the shirt, but
Well, I guess that's one way you could say it, I guess. Um, but no, I mean, I've been a big fan of him since he signed. And it's kind of funny because like I saw that he signed, and then they had put up that his nickname was Choo Choo. And I remember my mom had saw the tweet, and she shows it to me. She's like, "Hey, did you see we signed this guy? His nickname's Choo Choo." And that was kind of like a big thing for me and her because like when I was like a kid, like I was big on trains. I was big on Thomas and Friends. So that was like my thing growing up was like trains and stuff. So that was kind of just like me and her little thing with it. And I feel like that's part of why like I'm kind of like emotionally attached to this man. But I mean he's a baller. I have great memories of going to U2 games and seeing him just dominate. I mean, I remember there was one game we had played Miami and it went to a penalty shootout and he took this penalty. Not he sent the keeper the wrong way, but he literally like walked up to the ball and just tapped it in. I saw that, I lost my mind. Like that was the coolest thing in the world seeing that. And then me and one of our other buddies, LJ, we went to a game. I forget who we were playing, but he scored like twice in 5 minutes and he had been subbed on like 10 minutes before. I mean, he's been ripping it up. Um
Yes.
and Leagues Cup as well, like that was another like big thing for him. Um, us not having Bedoya, he finally like found some minutes and he started making like a huge impact with the first team. And it was kind of like that big break that he had. And then like winning that penalty shootout against Red Bull, like that was pretty darn cool. Um, who was it? He scored like 28 seconds into a game, and I only remember that because 28's my number, by the way. It's
Nice.
not a coincidence that he did that. Um, but uh, I mean, I just he's a really special player, and he's just as special of a human being. Like he knows, like I'm big on him, right? Like he
Mhm.
knows, and him and his family, like we're all in touch somewhat, and they're really special people, and I think that's kind of something else that I've gained out of this is like not just being a fan of him, but like being a friend. And I think you know I could see him getting a starting spot maybe within the next year, but obviously I'm happy with what he's been so far. So
I think he gets a starting spot next year. I think even if they were to bring Allie back, I think it's now his turn.
Yeah, I think he's earned it.
I think he has too, and I'm excited to see his growth and development because you're right. His story's pretty cool, and he's an awesome, awesome person. Just even to interview, I mean, he gives some great answers.
Yeah, our friend
Yeah.
Jose Nunez, he got to interview him in Spanish. That was
Mm.
awesome. So, we've seen and heard a lot of like, is this the end of an era with the union? Where do you guys stand on that? Do you think it's like, at the end, do we need to reboot? Do we need to like start retooling things or, what do you guys think?
I definitely don't think it has to be. I think it can be if they let it, but everyone's saying that, I feel like, and I really
Yeah.
don't see it because obviously we'll know probably in a couple of days what the situation is with Bedoya and Wagner, whether or not they're staying, whether or not that's the right decision is a whole other conversation. Um, but there's a very realistic chance that 8 or 9 of the players that started that game in Cincinnati, or would have if healthy, are going to be starting on the first game of the year. And does that mean the era is any different? I don't think so. If the team is virtually the same, at least the spine is going to be the same.
Mhm.
And truly, I think the biggest part of this offseason, and maybe this bleeds into the summer window, but I think Carranza's going to bring in a lot more money than we've ever seen.
Mhm.
And whether or not they choose to spend that money, and if so, where they spend that money, I have a very good feeling this roster 6 months from now can be the exact same thing with 1 or 2 upgrades if they play their cards right. And in no way is that the end of an era to me. Um, I really don't see this team having a major regression more than a couple of points here or there, unless they really try to shoot themselves in the foot. Then again, I've been a Philadelphia sports fan my entire life, so
Yeah.
I can't say that too jokingly.
No.
Yeah, Kyle, what do you think?
Well, basically all of what Evan said. Um, the Carranza thing. I mean, listen, I'm sure that they're praying that they get a big bag for him because that Sportsplex ain't gonna pay for itself. You know what I mean? So, um, but I mean, I I can see just a couple guys getting signed. I mean, but the again, like Evan said, like the lineup that we had in Cincinnati, like it's probably gonna look very similar to that for our home opener. I see that back line being the same. Andre, he's not going anywhere, I don't think. Um, Brujo, McGlynn, Gazdag, like I think all those guys, I think they're I think that's a good midfield three. Um, so up top, again, I've seen a lot about Uwa, like we need to get rid of him. Um, but I've seen some good stuff from him. I don't think we have to get rid of. I think he's just in a bit of a slump. So
Right. So, if for those of you listening, MLS has announced that for the U.S. Open Cup this year, and we kind of touched on it a little bit at the beginning, that the reserve team, the U2s of MLS Next Pro, will be participating, and not the first teams. So, I want to get both of your thoughts on what you think and what does that do for the league image, because a lot of people are outraged at it. We just want to hear your thoughts.
It's definitely interesting, especially for us with our whole Union 2 and Next
Hmm.
Pro situation. I'll admit I don't like the decision. I don't think it's the correct decision at all. I, it really breaks down to a couple of extra games a year, and I understand that congestion is an issue, but throwing away a tournament that really is the entire reason the sport is the way it is in this country today, probably not the way to do it. And it's definitely not a good PR look in a time where they could really use it as a league. So definitely wasn't happy when I first saw it. But then the silver lining of it, since that is the situation, and Kyle and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, is that we know a lot of these Union 2 guys, even some of the lesser known names that we talked about, and this is an opportunity, I'm sure, for them to, get a really big game under their belts. A lot of these players haven't played in a game that has super high stakes. Unfortunately, the MLS Next Pro playoffs first round is as far as they've gotten either year. So, getting a really high stakes game is only going to help them grow. Getting the opportunity to maybe travel to a USL team they haven't played could be really interesting for them. And again, not really the right play on the league's part, but the silver lining is that a lot of young, talented players are going to get exposure, big minutes, and possibly a deep run in a competition for the first time in their lives.
Agreed. Agreed. Val?
yeah, when I remember Evan had sent us a text like telling us about what had happened. Um, And immediately, like my mind, I didn't think about, what people are outraged about. I immediately thought about like our guys and how cool that must be for them, like seeing that and hearing about that. Um, like that's just kind of where my mind went. I immediately thought to like our guys and like how psyched they must be, like, um, kind of just having like those extra games to have under their belt, with such high stakes. But again, it's really not necessarily the greatest of looks for MLS in a time where they just gained like half of the world's viewership because of one guy.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like that's kind of how I look at it. Like I'm kind of defeated. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I have both perspective. Like I know our you two guys, like they're hyped. They're so excited to, do this. But by the same token, like you have to consider like it's just kind of really not the right move. Probably not the right way to approach trying to incorporate these teams. But it is what it is at this point. I'm sure that they're probably gonna at least think about fixing their mistake. I would hope they would at least, but that's it's kind of what I stand on it. So
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. I think maybe they tweak some stuff, but we'll see. I mean, it's kind of not a good look, I feel, but at the same token, like you said, it's a great opportunities for these young and up and coming players as well. So it's a lot to digest on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with it. Yeah, I'm just thinking, yeah, it's not the greatest look, but
So,
yeah.
again, guys, thanks for coming on
Yeah, we
today. We
appreciate it.
really appreciate it. And where can people find you guys on social media?
I'm on Twitter at SOB_Evan. I present that with a fair warning that that's going to fill your timeline with a lot of stuff that probably isn't relevant, but as long as the warning's out there. And then my work, as well as the writing of plenty of good people, I don't even have enough time to list them, is at philadelphiasoccernow.com. And coverage on everything across the union is just excellent on all of these sites, including what you guys do. It's just, we're so lucky to have so many good people. So I can't shout myself out without the same for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
what is my Twitter? Let me see. Uh, we don't do this all the time. Let's see. KWoo6000 is my Twitter. Probably Kyle the Baby or the same thing as my Twitter on Instagram. Um, I have Facebook now, but I'm sure you don't want to see that. I can't figure that out for my life. Um, we're gonna have, but listen, I'll leave it with this. There's gonna be one more social media for us to share with the world pretty soon.
All
Like
right.
I would hope
Awesome.
maybe tomorrow.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yes.
So this has been all for the One Team We Agree On.
Yeah, so make sure to subscribe and leave a comment. We love hearing from you. And if you have any ideas for future guests or episodes, send them our way.
And until next time, I'm Kyle,
I'm Jillian.
and we'll see you at the game.